Otis Williams, ladies and gentlemen.
He is the leader, founder, and backbone of the Temptations.
No, wrong. No, him. This is the newest.
That's right.
For more than 6 decades, Otis Williams has been the steady heartbeat behind one of music's most iconic groups, the Temptations. Yet beneath the legendary harmonies and roaring crowds lay untold stories of division, rivalry, and secrets that threatened to upend everything fans believed about the band. How did a group celebrated for unity survive internal battles, fierce personalities, and a world divided by race? At 84, Otis finally breaks his silence on a secret so powerful it could change the legacy of Motown's greatest act forever. The hidden weight of fame. Behind the smooth harmonies and polished performances of the Temptations, there was a tension few saw, but many felt. Otis Williams, as the group's steady backbone, sensed early on that beneath the smiles and choreography, rivalries and conflicts simmered just beneath the surface. The pressure of fame weighed heavily. Not only the expectations of audiences, but the dynamics within a group trying to hold itself together amid growing success and clashing personalities. These unspoken struggles would become a secret Otis carried for decades, something that shaped the path of the group in ways no fan could have imagined. Otis knew from the start that fame was a double-edged sword. With every hit song and ecstatic crowd, there came internal battles that threatened the group's unity. Achieving legendary status was not just about musical talent, but survival in a world filled with egos, ambitions, and the harsh realities of the music industry. The delicate balance between brotherhood and competition created an environment where loyalty was tested, and sacrifices were often hidden behind the scenes. While the Temptations were quickly becoming the sound of a generation, their journey was riddled with moments of doubt and friction. Otis was often caught in the middle of these conflicts, especially in his dealings with David Ruffin, a powerhouse singer whose fiery temperament sometimes boiled over. This tension became an ever-present thread in the fabric of their story. It wasn't just about music. It was about managing egos, navigating emotional wounds, and holding a group together against odds that few outsiders understood. Fame changed everything. The spotlight magnified not only their success, but their struggles. As the pressure mounted, so did the secrets, things that had to be kept silent to protect the group's public image, and, often, to protect themselves. Otis's silence was a quiet form of leadership, born out of respect and the hope that the group could endure, despite the fractures. But the pressures built like a gathering storm, hinting at a breaking point that would change everything. This hidden pressure wasn't unique to the Temptations. It reflected the broader reality for many African-American artists in the era, fighting for success while navigating harsh social and industry challenges. But for Otis and his bandmates, it was intensely personal. There was a cost to their fame that went beyond the obvious. These early crackles of conflict quietly shaped the group's trajectory and planted seeds of secrets that would remain guarded behind closed doors. What Otis held close was not just the day-to-day struggles, but a monumental truth, one that emerged slowly over the years and would eventually demand to be told. It was a truth deeply tied to the identities of the men behind the music, their fears, regrets, and hopes. For decades, it was a secret that shaped the course of their lives and legacies, locked away beneath the thrill of the stage and sound of the crowd. Behind every great harmony lies a story waiting to break the silence. Detroit, dreams, and early days. Otis Williams' story begins far from the bright lights of fame in the neighborhood streets of Detroit, a city alive with music, ambition, and possibility. Growing up in a quiet part of Texarkana before moving to Detroit, Otis found himself immersed in a world pulsing with rhythm and dreams fueled by the Great Migration. The city was a melting pot of musical influences, where gospel mingled with soul, and every corner seemed to hum with potential. For a young Otis, it wasn't just home. It was an open stage waiting for him to make his mark. Musical ambition coursed through Otis's veins early. He changed his last name to Williams, adopting his mother's maiden name as his stage identity, a choice that reflected his desire to forge a new path while honoring his roots. Detroit's vibrant scene brought him into contact with rising stars like Barrett Strong and Eddie Holland, whose early success inspired Otis to push harder. He quickly learned that talent alone was not enough. Connections and relentless drive would be critical to breaking through. Otis formed his first group, Otis Williams in the Distance, whose sound began capturing attention with local hits and energetic performances. Their music was raw but promising, infused with the gospel influences and street-smart style that defined Detroit's soul sound. It was during one of these performances at St. Stephen's Community Center that fate intervened in the form of Berry Gordy, the future founder of Motown Records, who saw in Otis and his group a spark worth nurturing. Berry Gordy's casual yet decisive offering of a business card and an invitation to bring the group to Motown marked a turning point. It wasn't just a chance meeting. It was the beginning of a movement that would change musical history. Motown wasn't simply a record label. It was a cultural revolution, and Otis and his fellow musicians were about to become its standard bearers. The promise of something bigger fueled their ambition and sharpened their focus. Motown's roster was packed with big legends, like the Supremes, Marvin Gaye, and Smokey Robinson, among others. When Otis and his crew joined this creative powerhouse, they got a kind of chance and visibility, but also this heavy pressure that sat on your shoulders. Inside Motown's walls, the talent was honed, kinda like raw gold, then polished through strict rehearsals and constant talk about perfection. Otis took it in, and you could tell he understood that this place was where dreams could turn into real, lasting legacies. The group that later became the Temptations had to get past a couple of early identity things, starting with a name change from the Elgins to the Temptations, so they could lock in their own sound. Their harmonies mixed the smooth feel of R&B with a sharper soul edge, all supported by charismatic stage presence and choreography that didn't play around. Together, they kind of defined the whole moment, making music that stuck with people well beyond Detroit and not just the city limits. But behind the climb, there was this winding road, and it wasn't exactly clear. There were frequent lineup changes, messy managerial problems, and personal dramas that tested whether the group could stay together. Still, their shared hunger and that belief in the music kept them going, held together like a brotherhood built from the hopes you find on Detroit's streets. Otis's early days, they were really shaped by that push-pull between what could happen and what refused to be easy. As the Temptations' sound matured and then caught a national audience, Otis stayed connected to his beginnings. He seemed to know the trip wasn't finished yet. The city that gave him a start kept shaping his voice, his leadership, and those values he brought into every performance. Detroit wasn't only home, it was the living heartbeat of a musical revolution. The stage was set not only for success, but for the battles that awaited beyond the spotlight. Breaking barriers in segregated South. One of the most powerful, yet harrowing, experiences Otis Williams and the Temptations faced came not from recording studios or charts, but from the segregated audiences they performed before. In Columbia, South Carolina, they stepped onto a stage facing an auditorium divided by a literal rope, blacks on one side, whites on the other. This stark segregation was more than a backdrop. It was a symbol of the societal divides that black artists confronted daily. Yet, the Temptations sang regardless, their voices soaring above the artificial barriers. The image of a rope splitting an audience speaks volumes about the era's painful realities. Otis recalls their disbelief and frustration landing in that racially divided auditorium, where the distance wasn't just physical, but social and political. It was a powerful reminder that their music wasn't just entertainment. It was a form of resistance, challenging unjust norms and bringing people together, even in the most divided places. Despite the hostility implicit in such segregation, the Temptations' harmonies united the crowd, creating moments of transcendence that defied the lines drawn beneath them. Their performance was a collective act of courage and hope, an assertion that music could bridge divides that politics and prejudice entrenched. This night was just one of many where they took the stage not only to sing, but to make a statement invisible ropes could not contain. This experience underscored the dual role the Temptations played, not simply as entertainers, but as cultural ambassadors in a tumultuous social landscape. Their music became a soundtrack to the civil rights era, carrying messages of love, unity, and change to audiences that often reflected the very divisions those messages confronted. For Otis and his bandmates, this responsibility was both an honor and a heavy burden. The segregated auditorium was, this tiny microcosm of America's bigger struggle, a sober reminder that the fight for equality didn't just live on marches and protests. It spilled out into everything, even music venues, and those concert halls where people thought nothing could really change. The Temptations, standing there before split crowds, were basically on the front lines of that cultural battle, using their voices to push back on old rules and to nudge change one song at a time like it could add up. Even with all the obstacles, Otis and the group kept moving ahead, still set on pushing forward, knowing their music might build understanding where words sometimes fail or just can't reach. Their performances turned into stubborn little acts of defiance and hope, insisting on shared humanity even while the room was trying to divide it. The moments they made on stage said more than any rope or sign that was meant to keep people apart, and it did it without asking permission. Those experiences also sharpened Otis's sense of how high the stakes really were, not only for their careers, but for the communities that leaned on their sound as a kind of beacon. The Temptations understood that each note had weight beyond the melody, reaching into hearts and into the hopes of a nation that was arguing with its own conscience, day after day. That legacy ended up shaping who they were, as artists and as actual people. From those divided audiences, a message of hope echoed. Music's power to connect is stronger than any line drawn between us. Internal conflicts and rising tensions. As the Temptations' fame grew, so did the tensions behind the scenes. David Ruffin emerged as a force of nature. His powerful voice and commanding presence reshaped the group's sound, but his fiery temperament posed serious challenges. Otis often found himself navigating volatile moments with Ruffin, whose pride and sometimes unpredictable behavior pushed the limits of group unity. Their relationship, like a tightly stretched rope, was always on the verge of snapping, creating stress that permeated rehearsals, performances, and everyday life. Ruffin's rising star brought both acclaim and conflict. While audiences admired his soulful leads, inside the group, his demands and moments of aggression tested loyalties. He sometimes insisted on being recognized above others, even suggesting the group be renamed to include his own name, a move that unsettled not only Otis, but the entire band. This struggle for control clashed with the group's spirit of collective success, sowing discord amid growing attention. Substance abuse further complicated matters. David Ruffin's increasing reliance on cocaine affected his reliability, leading to missed rehearsals and performances. His erratic behavior undermined the group's stability, forcing Otis and others to confront painful realities about their brother-in-arms. Managing these disruptions while maintaining public appearances demanded tremendous resilience and discretion from Otis, who bore much of the weight quietly. The breaking point arrived in June 1968, when Ruffin's actions, such as skipping a concert in Cleveland to see his new love and subsequent disruption during Dennis Edwards' first performance, pushed the band to a decision. Ruffin had to go. This moment fractured the group, but was also an act of survival. While painful, it marked a necessary step to preserve the Temptations' future. The transition to Dennis Edwards was tense, complicated by Ruffin's attempts to reclaim his place, including surprise appearances that shocked both band and audience. Legal battles soon followed as Ruffin sued Motown to end his contract, while the label fought to keep him grounded as a solo artist. Meanwhile, inside the Temptations, fresh challenges emerged. Eddie Kendricks, once a Ruffin ally and lead singer, began to distance himself from the new direction. His preference for traditional ballads clashed with the group's evolving psychedelic soul sound. Kendricks's frustrations extended beyond music to financial suspicions and internal disputes, contributing to an atmosphere ripe with conflict. These growing rifts kinda tested the band's cohesion. Kendricks even proposed a strike, like outright demanding an independent financial review to deal with the group's grievances. And that sounded reasonable at first, but it got messy quick. The whole idea was controversial. It ran into strong opposition from Otis and Melvin Franklin, and it only intensified factions within the band. In the end, the mounting tensions became too heavy, and Kendricks walked out during a performance in November 1970, which basically signaled the end of his chapter with the Temptations and left a void, both musically and personally, in a way that was hard to ignore. Otis found himself right in the middle of these storms, trying to hold together friendship, leadership, and business all at once. The emotional toll was immense. Close relationships started unraveling, not just because of feelings, but also because of the pressures of fame, creative differences, and those constant industry demands. Still, he stayed committed to the group's survival because he understood that the legacy they built didn't come easy. It meant navigating those painful trials with a steady resolve. No shortcuts. This era of turmoil showed how fragile everything was under the Temptations' legendary facade. The smiles and harmonies rarely showed the depth of struggles tangled up with their success, like people only saw the sheen but not the cost. The weight of leadership pressed heavily on Otis, who faced the daunting challenge of steering the group through turbulent waters while preserving its essence. The struggle for identity and change. As the late 1960s gave way to the 1970s, the Temptations grappled with an evolving music scene and the need to redefine themselves. With Dennis Edwards stepping in for Ruffin, the group entered a new era marked by experimentation and social consciousness. Producer Norman Whitfield pushed the band toward edgier, psychedelic soul, crafting tracks like Cloud 9 and Ball of Confusion that reflected the times. This stylistic shift fueled renewed recognition, but also sparked internal debates over the group's direction and identity. Adapting to these changes was no easy feat. Longtime members wrestled with the loss of the classic Motown style that had made them famous. Eddie Kendricks' departure in 1971, frustrated with the shift to more experimental sounds, underscored this divide. His exit highlighted the difficulty in balancing innovation with the expectations of fans and the group's own sense of self. These musical tensions mirrored broader struggles as the band sought to stay relevant amid a swiftly changing industry. Meanwhile, personal challenges continued to shake the group. Paul Williams, battling health issues and alcoholism, faced a tragic fate, leaving the band devastated. His death in 1973 closed another chapter marked by loss and hardship. These personal tragedies affected Otis deeply, reminding him of the human cost hidden beneath the glamour. The frequent lineup changes and constant reinvention placed heavy burdens on every member. Despite setbacks, Otis remained committed to guiding the group forward, consistently seeking ways to revitalize their sound and appeal. He embraced the Philly soul influence in an attempt to reconnect with changing audiences, though this transition tested the band's cohesion further. The late 70s brought declining public interest and growing disagreements. Yet Otis's steady presence helped the Temptations endure where others faltered. The 80s brought moments of resurgence. Collaborations with artists like Rick James reintroduced the band's charm to new generations. Hits such as Treat Her Like a Lady and Stay proved that the group could evolve yet maintain their trademark appeal. Their performance in Motown's 25th anniversary special, alongside stars like Michael Jackson, rekindled attention and nostalgia, bridging past glories with contemporary acclaim. Throughout these decades of change, Otis played a crucial role as the group's anchor. His baritone may not have always taken the lead in songs, but his contributions shaped the Temptations' signature sound. Beyond vocals, his leadership through countless lineup shifts kept the band and its legacy intact. This balancing act was a delicate one, requiring both firmness and empathy. Change was inevitable, but for the Temptations, it also became a catalyst for reinvention and courage in the face of uncertainty. Personal losses and sacrifices. Behind the spotlight and roaring crowds, Otis Williams endured personal hardships that shaped his life as deeply as his music shaped a generation. The pressures of rising fame took a toll on his marriage to Josephine Rogers, which ended in divorce in 1964, just as the Temptations were soaring to national prominence. The demands of his career often collided with his personal life, revealing the sacrifices necessary to sustain success in a relentless industry. But these challenges were only the beginning of the emotional trials Otis would face. Tragedy struck deeply when Otis's son, Otis Lamont Miles, died in a workplace accident in 1985. The loss devastated him, adding a layer of profound grief beneath the public image of a steady band leader. This loss was private but monumental, shadowing Otis's later years with an ache that no applause could lessen. It was a reminder that behind every icon is a human story marked by pain as well as triumph. Romantic relationships brought both joy and heartbreak. Otis's engagement to Patti LaBelle, a fellow R&B star, offered hopes for love and partnership, but their differing commitments to music led to the engagement's end. Patti later reflected that her passion for her craft outpaced the compromises that Otis sought in having her settle down, illustrating the tension between personal aspirations and shared dreams. Their parting was amicable, but signaled the complexity of balancing life as entertainers. Later marriages also carried their own challenges. Otis's union with Anne Kane ended in divorce after several years, highlighting the difficulties of maintaining relationships amid the pressures of touring and recording. His third marriage to Arthur Goldie Williams brought stability and family, including a stepdaughter who later found fame herself. These chapters underscore Otis's search for connection amid the turbulent life of a music legend. The demands of notoriety extended beyond relationships. By the early 70s, Otis began requesting special treatments, like traveling separately from the group in a limousine lined with mink fur. Such decisions marked a noticeable shift from the close camaraderie within the band and caused discomfort among members. This reflected the growing distance between public status and private struggles, as fame altered daily realities for everyone involved. Inspired by Motown's elevation of Diana Ross, Otis proposed renaming the group to highlight David Ruffin's star power, a move that clashed with the group's collaborative ethos. These ambitions and fractures deepened tensions, especially as Ruffin's substance use worsened and his reliability declined. The band's patience frayed under the strain of missed shows and erratic behavior, and Otis was caught in the difficult position of managing both friendship and leadership. The shadows of personal loss often stretch longest behind the brightest stages, shaping those who remain to tell the story. Leadership and legacy. Otis Williams's role in the Temptations extended far beyond his smooth baritone and backing vocals. He was the anchor, the steadying force who navigated the group through decades of change and challenge. While other members often took the spotlight as lead singers, Otis was the organizer, the one who kept the band's vision intact amid shifting lineups and industry upheavals. His commitment to preserving the Temptations' identity was as crucial as the melodies they created. Leadership in the Temptations was a delicate balance between artistic collaboration and managing personalities. Otis's resolve was tested repeatedly as he faced conflicts, egos, and demands that threatened to pull the group apart. His ability to foster unity without suppressing individual expression played a vital role in sustaining the group through turbulent times. This behind-the-scenes stewardship often went unrecognized but was essential to their longevity. The promise Otis made early on with fellow original member Melvin Franklin to stay with the band no matter what served as a cornerstone of stability. Their loyalty forged a foundation that helped carry the group through losses, departures, and reinventions. Even after Melvin's death in 1995, Otis honored that commitment, becoming the last surviving original member and a living link to the Temptations' origins. Throughout his career, Otis stayed really involved in every part of the group's evolution, even with their most recent album back in 2022, which kind of showed this constant devotion to the band's legacy. His steadiness was a comfort, especially during times when nothing felt stable or sure, and it kept the Temptations anchored in what they'd already been, while also pushing them to try something new. That mix of reverence and refreshed energy was basically what defined how he led. Otis's voice and overall presence also gave the Temptations a distinct kind of sound. And it wasn't just singing either. He added spoken word parts to a few major tracks, bring more texture into performances like I'm Gonna Make You Love Me, the duet with Diana Ross. Those moments, they made clear how flexible he was and how he could work in subtle artistry that strengthened the group's lively soundscape. His baritone maybe wasn't always right at the front, but it was the thread that held their harmonies together. Still, his leadership wasn't some easy ride. There were challenges, sure, managing egos and dealing with business pressure, along with personal matters that needed attention. All that required non-stop effort. But Otis's determination to protect the group's integrity and its direction reassured fans and also other members. A lot of the time, his role felt like that of a guardian, shielding the legacy while guiding them through changes that were bound to happen. And the music industry, it moves fast, and tastes shift. So the Temptations got tested again and again. Even so, Otis's calm reliability helped them survive the storms that knocked other groups sideways. His insight and experience became real assets, helping the band adapt without dropping what made them feel like themselves. That broad, long-range leadership mindset leaned toward sustainability rather than quick, flashy success. The legacy Otis cultivates is not just about records or performances, but the enduring spirit of a group bound by brotherhood and an unbreakable commitment to their art. The secret finally revealed. After decades of silence, Otis Williams has finally lifted the veil on the secret that shaped not just his life, but the legacy of the Temptations. It wasn't just about the music, rivalries, or the battles with fame. It was a truth fundamentally tied to the identity, unity, and survival of the group amidst the turbulent racial and social landscape of their era. This secret, long guarded beneath the surface, holds the power to change everything fans believed about the band's humble beginnings and enduring success. At the heart of this secret was the pressure the group faced navigating a deeply segregated society. Their journey was not only about making hits, but also about standing together in a world divided by race. One night in Columbia, South Carolina, in a segregated auditorium, physically divided by a thick rope separating black and white audiences, the Temptations performed as one voice soaring over that barrier. This moment was emblematic of the defiance, courage, and unity that defined the band's true spirit, an unspoken bond that Otis cherished and protected. Otis revealed that the Temptations' story was one of resilience born from conflict, both inside the group and in the world outside. The secret he held was the knowledge of just how close the group came to falling apart amid personal strife, societal pressures, and the complexities of fame. Behind the polished surfaces were moments of heartbreak, rivalries, and battles that threatened to unravel their tight-knit brotherhood. Sharing this truth has allowed Otis to reconcile the myth with the reality they lived. The depth of the group's struggles went way farther than what fans ever thought. The tensions with David Ruffin, the disputes over identity, and the need to adapt musically were held down by fears nobody said out loud. Plus, sacrifices that piled up over time. Otis's silence was never like simply hiding shame. It was really about keeping that fragile unity together, the thing that carried them through decades without breaking. And it took real nerve to finally crack that silence, to share the story of the band's setbacks and wins with honesty, and with a kind of clear-eyed clarity. Putting this secret out there has started to reshape how people understand the Temptations not only as entertainers, but as men, tied into the history of race, culture, and resilience across America. Otis's own reflections nudge us to see their music as more than melody, more like a score, a soundtrack for a nation that kept changing. Their harmonies pushed against invisible boundaries, and their journey shows, in a direct way, how art can draw people together exactly where society tried to split them apart. By speaking plainly now, Otis kind of invites us to view the Temptations as a living legacy of strength, endurance, and possibility. His revelations deepen the appreciation for their unity, not only the polished public image, but a hard-won reality stitched from shared hardship. Their survival wasn't something destined. It was earned bit by bit through each confrontation, each unsure moment, and every note sung like defiance against division. Otis choosing to reveal this secret at 84 gives some closure to decades of silence, and it also brings new layers into the Temptations' bigger narrative. It makes us rethink not only their history, but the everyday truths faced by artists who walked a tough road during unstable times. His honesty also pays respect to the sacrifices of those who are no longer here, and it keeps the real story alive for the next generations to come. Otis Williams' story reveals the hidden battles behind a legendary band, reminding us that true strength comes from resilience and unity. Their journey teaches that behind every iconic voice lies a human tale of struggle and hope. If you found this story compelling, please like and subscribe for more deep dives into music history and untold stories.